countdown is on. Just 13 days until the NFL draft. This year, 16 prospects will be in attendance in Pittsburgh. Waiting for that call, for that magical moment. Plenty of names here on this board to get excited about, and certain players that we are keeping an eye on. Let's start with you, Kevin Clark.
Sonny Styles, 6'5" linebacker, did not miss a tackle during the regular season and the Big Ten championship game. Has some of the best tape on earth. When he went to the combine to do his testing, his numbers were more in line with Julio Jones and Calvin Johnson than any other linebacker. That's the type of athlete that we're talking about. I think he's going to end up being the best player in this draft. He's an unbelievable athlete. Give me him in the top 5.
Excited to see Francis Mauigoa and where he lines up, because we're going to find out a lot on draft day. Not only the city he's playing, but maybe the position he plays at the pro level. A right tackle, vast majority of his time at Miami. But there are teams who see him potentially as a guard. A lot of teams see him as a right tackle. Might even see teams see him as a future left tackle. So where he goes and what those teams have at tackle and guard might determine where he's playing week 1 in the NFL.
Notre Dame running back Jeremiyah Love is one of the most interesting and perhaps most talented players in the entire draft. Maybe even the most talented player. But he also plays a position that is not seen as valuable or is more context dependent. So where he goes in the draft.
I am also very excited to talk about that today and a story with you alongside the Brain Trust here. We have Bill, we have Mina, we have Kevin. We are getting smarter today, and we also, all of us, we love love. It is hard to argue who has been the most valuable offensive player in college over the last 2 seasons, and it is indeed the guy that Mina was talking about, Notre Dame's Jeremiyah Love, top 2 in FBS in scrimmage yards and touchdowns. He broke Jerome Bettis's touchdown record, which had stood since 1991. He's been so good, he's gotten the attention of one Saquon Barkley.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
I'm a really big fan. I think he's a heck of a player. I think has a great chance of going very high in the draft. But whoever gets that guy, again, a guy who is versatile, like can do it all back. He can block, he can run in between tackles, outside tackles, he can catch the ball. 2 years ago in the playoffs against Penn State, he had a run like in the goal line, and just I don't know how he got into the end zone, and he found a way to get in the end zone. And from there, I knew he was going to be a great back, and super excited for him and wish him nothing but the best.
So cool to hear Saquon say that, Bill. Saquon, the last running back drafted in the top 5. Which team do you think? Because Mina said, you know, it is fascinating. He should probably go to a team that is built to maximize his talents. What do you think is a good fit?
I would say Washington, a team maybe Saquon Barkley does not want to see Jeremiyah Love go to in the division. But the Commanders already have the infrastructure for a back to succeed. They have an established, very solid offensive line led by their star left tackle, Laramie Tunsil. They were effective running the football each of the last 2 seasons with more lesser backs or replacement level backs in the backfield. And they have Jaden Daniels. And when you have a mobile quarterback, that changes the numbers for you up front. Now that backside defensive end, those linebackers, they have eyes on the quarterback because the quarterback might keep the football and run himself. We saw Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry both improve their efficiency dramatically as runners when they got with mobile quarterbacks. Saquon with Jalen Hurts, Derrick Henry with Lamar Jackson. So getting him in an offense that's going to have a quarterback who's a threat to run with the football, either on design runs or on scrambles or off a play action, could be a way to make Jeremiyah Love's easier in year 1 with the Commanders.
Until that clip of Saquon at Augusta, I thought this show was going to be a safe space to not remind me how bad my Masters picks were. But let's talk about Jeremiyah Love here for a second. I'm looking at this and I'm seeing him maybe falling to the back of the top 10 or even out of the top 10 could be the best thing that ever happened to him. We've proof of concept from last year. Ashton Genty going to Vegas with nothing around him was a really bad situation for basically everybody involved. It made the pick look worse than it actually was. I'm eyeing the Rams at 13 or potentially a team trading up into the back half of the top 10. Hasn't happened since Melvin Gordon in the first round. The team trades up to go get their guy. Love the Commanders, as Bill said. That would be a nice pick there. Jaden Daniels obviously trying to accentuate the deep ball again this year, but the running game, the running lanes are going to be a huge part of that. So I think there's a bunch of really good teams that are built now to win. I like the Jahmyr Gibbs model of playing behind a great offensive line, explosive runs, feeding into a contender. That is my fit for Love more than maybe a top 5 team that is still building wouldn't have the line to support him.
My favorite destination, which is not in the top 10, would be Minnesota with pick 18, because I do think they have the infrastructure. And now with Kyler Murray likely as their starting quarterback, the timeline for a superstar running back. You already have your receivers. The offensive line, when healthy, is good enough. And Love, to me, would take a run game that did improve some last year to the next level. But that's not going to happen. He's not going to be there at 18. So inside the top 10, I'm going to concur with Bill. I think the Washington Commanders make the most sense, given the fact that their offensive line is in decent shape. You have Terry McLaurin. For me, it would be hard to turn down Carnell Tate if he's available to them, because they do need another receiver, and I think he pairs so well with McLaurin. But I also think the Cleveland Browns at 6 are a very strong candidate to take Tate. And so if the Commanders were in that spot with Love as an option for them, I would definitely consider it, but it would also have to go up against, one of the top 3 edge rushers if that was an option as well.
When we refer to him as a running back, are we selling him a little bit short, Bill, because of the other things that he can do? Like, how would you anticipate that he might be used in the NFL?
Yeah, the receiving stuff matters here. And we've seen great offenses really incorporate their running backs into the receiving game in special ways. I go back to Sean Payton with the Saints and Alvin Kamara, with Kyle Shanahan and Christian McCaffrey, and really Sean McVay last year with Kylan Williams. When they needed a big play, they went to the running back choice concept. They got the running back out in the backfield, isolated against the linebacker or a safety one-on-one, let him pick his side of the field wherever he wanted to go. And that was the spot they went to on 3rd downs and 4th downs over and over and over again, even given all the talent they had elsewhere in that offense. So I do think it's going to be incumbent on the new Commander's staff to get the most out of him. But we know he can be a very special player, both as a runner and as a receiver.
Yeah, he also had the 5th most missed tackles in the last 2 seasons. So just, put that into the equation. Again, that's one of the great questions. We also have some tremendous wide receivers in this draft. So let's go through that. Matt Miller has locked in his rankings ahead of the NFL draft. These are his top 5 wide receivers. USC's Makai Lemon leading things off. Miller most recently has him going 6th to the Browns. We have Ohio State's Carnell Tate. We have Indiana's Omar Cooper Jr., followed by Jordan Tyson, KC Concepcion next off the board. Kevin, how do you rank this class? Take me through the next tier.
Yeah, I have Carnell Tate number 1. And you do not go broke in this industry by taking an Ohio State receiver. They've been reliable for almost a decade now. I don't think Tate's at the level of Garrett Wilson and Marvin Harrison Jr. and some of these other amazing prospects, Chris Olave, that we've seen. I don't think he's at the level of Jeremiah Smith, who'll be a top 5 pick next year, but I think that he is the best route runner. I think that he will, with any of these quarterbacks, we talked about Jaden Daniels, again, he will work back to the ball, he will get open, he will be a quarterback's best friend in week 1. I have KC Concepcion number 3, a little bit higher than most people. I just watch him in NC State, watch him in the SEC. He was reliably getting open. He was a forced missed tackle machine. He was a yards after catch demon. I just love everything about his game, and it's just going to translate really easily very early into his NFL career. Jordan Tyson, I have number 2. I just look at this and I say there's a lot that is right about him. We talk about his hamstring and his soft tissue stuff, and yes, that's a concern. Yep. But you just turn on the tape and you say, you know what? I'm going to roll the dice on Jordan Tyson. So incredibly deep class. I think there's going to be deep class every year. That's just the way the game is going. The best athletes in the sport at that size are playing wide receiver. It's going to be a deep class, maybe forever, but this is a good year to get somebody, especially late in the first round.
Yeah, we have the same top 3, Kevin. I thought I was bold for putting Concepcion at 3 over Lemon. I think it's a really close debate because they're different players, first of all. And there's a world in which Makai Lemon, if he lands in the right offense, is going to catch 1 million passes. As a high-volume target, he has vices for hands. The floor he brings is very high, but I think for Concepcion, the ceiling is actually a bit higher. And the way I would put it is this. Makai Lemon, after the catch, runs through people. Casey Lemon so much. It's explosive playmaking, and he has that ability. Does have some drops issues that he needs to clean up at the next level, but to me, that upside is too tantalizing to pass up.
Yeah, to me, there's a sort of a top two. To me, I have Tate and Tyson, and then everybody else kind of below them. And that's a lot to say about Tyson, because I think everybody has Tate as their number one. But what makes Tyson so fascinating to me and so valuable is how teams are defending offenses right now in the NFL. We're seeing teams play a lot of too high, take away the deep ball. They want to attack intermediately on the offensive side of the ball. And in that intermediate range, that 10 to 19 air yard range, Jordan Tyson was third in the nation in yards per route run over the past 2 seasons. One of the guys ahead of him, Harold Fannin, very different kind of player, a tight end, but a guy who translated that to an immediate impact role with the Cleveland Browns. So I know the injuries are a concern. Kevin mentioned the hamstring. There's a lot of issues for him in his past, but when he's on the field, that is a game changer in the exact spot teams are trying to exploit week after week on the offensive side of the ball.
Bill, I love that point about Tyson working in the intermediate part of the field. The other thing I'll add is he works the middle of the field, which is very important right now in today's NFL. You think about these Shanahan offenses. He has a toughness that I think is underappreciated in terms of, catching the ball and getting yards after the catch on those digs and slants and intermediate inbreakers. And just the movement abilities at his size are very rare. And there's a world in which he ends up being, I truly believe, the best receiver in the draft. The injury issues keep me from having him at number one, and I think we all share that concern. But yeah, there's a skill set here that teams should really covet.
Yeah, another thing about Tyson, when you look at ASU, and they went 5-0 against ranked teams since 2024, he have mutually agreed to seek a trade for the veteran cornerback as Moore is entering the last year of his contract. Meanwhile, in case you missed it, Kirk Cousins reported for the Raiders' offseason workouts this week, and among other things, he said he's excited about connecting with one of his new playmakers.
Yeah, I think he may be the best tight end in football. Hopefully we can make that a reality this fall, but got to keep him healthy, just like some of the other great players on this team. But he gives us an ability to use a lot of different personnel groupings. I think it can allow us to be very creative with how we attack defenses. I've always really enjoyed playing with talented tight ends because of the curveball that it throws at defenses, and I expect Brock to be as good of a curveball as I've ever played with.
That's some pretty high praise. Mina, how does Brock Bowers elevate this offense, no matter who's playing quarterback?
Yeah, I like Cousins' comment about his versatility, especially when you think about the young quarterback coming in, Fernando Mendoza. He loves to throw the football outside the numbers. He's very good at it. Was asked to do a lot at Indiana. And Bowers, despite being a tight end, does split out wide a decent amount. About 100 snaps out there last year, despite missing a lot of games due to injuries. I would look for that to actually increase and for the Raiders to isolate him on the backside as a receiving option for Mendoza, because I do think that pairing could be very helpful for the quarterback.
Meanwhile, in case you missed it, as the Giants started their offseason workouts this week, their new offensive coordinator, Matt Nagy, talked about what year 2 could look like for Jackson Dart.
The one thing I love about Jackson is Jackson wants to be the best. He really does. And so when you have that, that's half the battle. He wants to be the best. He wants to be, coached hard, have that discipline, and work on his footwork, his timing, and his connection with teammates. So we're going to do that. It's our job as coaches to be able to show him, these clips and get to training camp and get to the games and then win and be able to keep finding areas where he's doing things well, but then he can also grow.
Bill, how can Nagy maximize his strengths and also keep him safe?
Yeah, well, he also said Jackson Dart is not Patrick Mahomes, which was sad news for Giants fans to hear. But they do have something in common. They do both run the football really efficiently. Jackson Dart had the best success rate of any quarterback in football when he ran by more than 5 percentage points last season. And playing off that is going to be a strength. They have to be selective about when they use him and how frequently they use him in the quarterback run game. But if you can create quick game opportunities by manipulating linebackers, if you can scramble and create stuff off of scramble drills, that's opportunities for quarterbacks to hit big plays that are created strictly by their ability to run the football. So you have to really balance that difference between using Jackson Dart too often and using the threat of Jackson Dart to get the most out of him as a passer.
Yeah, and he's got to stay on the field, so he's got to be smart. All right, to Houston, where this week the Texans picked up the 5th-year options for quarterback C.J. Stroud and for Will Anderson. Kevin, Stroud had a disastrous playoffs last season. How should the Texans be assessing his future value?
Yeah, these two moves look the exact same in the transaction column, but they are very different. Will Anderson's fifth-year option is a placeholder for a long-term extension that should have been signed yesterday. With CJ Stroud, they gotta wait and see. He is the first player in history to have 5 interceptions and 5 fumbles in a single postseason. There were some good things. He's one of 5 quarterbacks ever to reach the divisional round in each of his first 3 seasons, but in the latter half of the season, he didn't use his legs well. He looked uncomfortable outside the pocket. His QBR when he was rolling outside the pocket was much worse than it was earlier in the season. Frankly, he's regressed. There's no other way to put it from his rookie year. And now the Texans have a massive decision to make. The problem is there's no such thing as a middle-class quarterback in this league. You're either looking at top of the market, $60 million, or you're looking at getting a new quarterback. CJ Stroud is not going to take below market. This is one of the biggest X factors in football this year. Yeah. Because if CJ Stroud regains the form we saw 2 or 3 years ago with that defense, it's Texans Super Bowl. If not, disaster.
Yeah, 5 of those fumbles came in one game. And 4 of those interceptions came in a single half. So, yeah, when you put it that way, we need to turn around this season. All right, still to come. Bill, Matt Miller, Field Yates, and Mel Kiper having him at 5. Jordan Reed at 7. And then Peter Schrager down to 12. Mina, do you think today's defensive schemes increase the value of a versatile safety like Downs?
It's hard not to feel that way after watching the team that won the Super Bowl, the Seattle Seahawks, use a very versatile safety, Nick Emenwari, who played multiple positions to great effect, including on their playoff run. But I think it's important to distinguish sort of the different types of versatility at the safety position. Emenwari is closer to like a Kyle Hamilton, where you have him in the box. The versatility he brings is as a blitzer in addition to covering tight ends and running backs at times, versus safeties who play more the post and use that versatility to disguise your attentions post-snap. Really useful, again, something you see a lot, increasingly across the NFL against quarterbacks to make them hold on to the football when they turn their back to the defense to change the picture for him. And Downs, to me, is that type of safety. He's someone you can trust to play the post as well as play strong safety. He is closer to like a Brian Branch type, I would say, than an Emenwari or Kyle Hamilton, in part because of his size. He's not that large. He's not a freak athlete, but he is an outrageously intelligent football player, always in the right position to make plays both against the pass and the run. So I think for whatever team that takes him, that is the best way to use him, to utilize his versatility. And I do think he can be an impact starter immediately in the NFL.
Yeah, you mentioned Emenwari, and that is to me the really interesting part about how teams are approaching the safety position. The Seahawks played their nickel or dime defense about 95% of the time last year, most of any team in football by a significant margin. And that's what defenses in an ideal world want to do. They want to play light boxes, they want to play with their nickel and dime packages, help take away the big plays, but you need a safety who can hold up against the run to do that. And Downs, to me, he's not an Emenwari, like you said, in terms of his physicality, but the intelligence, the ability to know where to spill the runs to where to fit the runs. If he's going to be playing on the line of scrimmage, his ability to tackle. He's a very good tackler as well. All of that adds up. Maybe move another safety into the box because you have a guy you trust playing center field in Downs. But that ability to play with your 3 safety set as your primary defense is something the vast majority of NFL defenses want to do. They want to keep that third linebacker off the field because all the great offenses, the McVay offense, the Shanahan offense, the Reed offense, all they want to do is attack that third linebacker over and over and over again with the passing game. So if you can pull that off the way the Seahawks did, safety is an incredibly underrated and incredibly valuable position.
I'm with you, Bill. Safety is undervalued, especially in the draft, because teams don't define what it is well enough. You're basically a jack of all trades all over the field, and Caleb Downs is the epitome of that. 44 snaps last year at Ohio State at the line of scrimmage alone. He was the only guy in this draft class who had 100 snaps at basically every part of the field, in the box, in the slot, deep safety. He was all over the place. And to me, you guys mentioned how smart he is. It's the football education he got. He started at Alabama under Nick Saban, was smart enough to go learn from maybe the best DB coach in history. Then he goes to Ohio State, wins national championship under Jim Knowles, then gets an NFL education his last year with Matt Patricia. So he's done it all. He's played it all. He's seen so many good offenses. His tape is unbelievable. He rarely makes a mistake. But yes, Ask the teams that passed on Kyle Hamilton whether or not safety is undervalued. Ask the teams that the 34 of them, 34 picks went by before Nicky Manwari last year. And so I just feel like it's becoming a more no-brainer decision to take these guys as soon as possible because what they do as far as changing the picture of your defense.
Yeah, but to your point, only 6 safeties in the common draft era, so we're going all the way back to the late 60s, have even gone in the top 5. We haven't seen one taken in the top 5 since Eric Berry back in 2010. We'll see if that changes this year. Meanwhile, Bill, we had a lot of fun with this yesterday, so let's do it again. So Bill put out his annual all trades mock. He proposes trades for every single pick in the draft. I love it. So let's get into a couple. This one's fun. We're going to start with the Chiefs trading up to pick number 4 to get edge rusher David Bailey, Bill.
Yeah, I think they need that second edge rusher next to George Karlaftis. Of course, Chris Joe's the focal point of that defense, but can they get that guy with bend? They're going to have to go up to get David Bailey, I believe. They give up 9 and 40 here, get that 4th overall pick and a couple mid-round picks back. But to me, I know they have needs in the secondary. I know they have a couple guys up front they feel good about, but that's that really bendy edge rusher they just don't have. Karlaftis is not that kind of player, and so every good team has a great defensive line. You went up front. The Chiefs, they're struggling a little bit to do it the way they did maybe a couple years ago. So I think about that trade up. It's a lot to give up, but this is their chance to get a superstar player at a premium position towards the top of the draft.
Mina, what do you think?
Well, first, I love this for the Tennessee Titans, and their phone lines should be open. To me, they are the team who should be looking to trade down the most and acquire draft picks so that they can throw multiple picks at improving the offense, not just one position. They need offensive linemen. They need wide receivers for Cam Ward. They need tight ends. So the more draft picks the Titans can get, the better. It is a lot to give up for Kansas City, and I think probably how you feel about Bailey determines that. But I will say this to Bill's point. They have multiple needs, but I do think the Chiefs are more likely to get impactful or starting level receivers and corners later in the draft versus the edge position. I have the top 3 in a tier, and there's a pretty significant drop off to the next one. So that would help justify this kind of move.
I love this for the Titans. You mentioned it, Mina. They need a lot of picks because they need a lot of players. And I think that when you start looking at how this draft is shaping up, somebody really good is going to be at 9. Whether that's the aforementioned Caleb Downs, Ruben Bain dropping because of arm length. There's going to be somebody there. But the Chiefs should stay there as well. I don't think that David Bailey is worth the premium. I think whatever you're going to get at 9 is going to be fine there. I just think the draft is shaping up with the amount of tackles rising up the board. We'll see what happens with wide receivers. Obviously, Mendoza going number 1. There's going to be a really good defensive player available at 9. Both these teams should want to be there. That's why the Chiefs should say no to this one.
Okay, let's go to another one. This one between the Ravens and the Dolphins. Bill, break it down for us.
Yeah, we're using Chop Robinson to move up. We're getting Chop Robinson for the Ravens. Dolphins moving up from 30 to 14, getting ahead of the Jets, other teams who have needs in the secondary. Chop Robinson's going to be an addition for that Ravens pass rush we talked about yesterday. That was a mess last season. They had Trey Hendrickson, but Chop Robinson was a guy who, as a rookie, was top 10 in the NFL, not amongst rookies, amongst all players in quick pressure rate. Never really seemed to get settled last year, and it was very interesting. When the Dolphins have talked about their core with their new regime, it's been Devon Achane, it's been Jordan Brooks, Aaron Brewer. They have not mentioned Chop Robinson, their first-round pick from a couple of years ago. So if the Ravens can add a premium edge rush prospect, still the first-round pick, move down a bit, feels like that could be a win-win for both sides.
All right, Kev, you buying this one?
Bill, yesterday I compared you to the Michael Jordan of fake trades, and you're officially in your Washington Wizards era. I do not like this trade for Baltimore Ravens. Let's start there. I don't think getting Chop Robinson, who is 2 years closer to being paid in free agency than a rookie this year, is that much of a difference maker to start dangling a pick swap in the first round. I think a guy like Akeem Mesidor, Kedrick Falk, those guys are going to be available. Even someone like Cassius Howe might be a little early for that. Those guys are going to be available and can give you Chop Robinson level production earlier in their career cheaper. So I don't like this trade. I wouldn't do it if I was the Ravens. You already have Trey Hendrickson if you want a veteran in there at the pass rush. I just feel like they've got so many holes to fill. Having the 30th pick in this draft is a bad idea.
I'm good with Miami doing the trade. I'm less good with Baltimore. I would like them just to stay put, quite frankly, because My view is that at pick 14, there's an opportunity to add an impact player at a position they need. I actually think this draft is positioned really well for Baltimore, who I feel their biggest needs. Yes, they could use another pass rusher. They could use a cornerback. But in the first round, I would go offense, either in the interior of the offensive line, like a Venga Ioane, the guard out of Penn State, or a receiver. We talked about how good some of them are. And I do think they're going to have a really nice choice at 14. This is also a team that we know should be in contention, but does have pretty big goals on offense. So I'd like them to address them with a player who can be impactful on that side of the ball immediately.
Hey guys, guess what? We have a real trade. While you guys were talking, yes, there is a real trade in the NFL, not a mock trade. New on NFL Live from Shefty, according to ESPN sources, the Green Bay Packers are trading wide receiver Dontavian Wicks to the Philadelphia Eagles in exchange for a 2026 fifth-round pick and a 2027 sixth-round pick. He's going to sign a one-year deal, $12.5 million extension with the Eagles per his agent, David Mulugeta. Okay. What do you think, Mina?
Very Eaglesy. I'll start there in taking a player who has at times flashed some high highs. Dontavian, there's been games truly where he has looked like a legit threat downfield, making plays with the ball in his hands. And then there's been games where he's disappeared. There's been drops. But Philadelphia, don't worry, this is not your A.J. Brown replacement if they're going that route.
Exactly.
They did need a wide receiver 3, though, and this gives them an option there at very low cost. As you saw there, it's a late-round pick swap. And these don't always work for Howie Roseman, but he keeps swinging at them, and I love him for it.
Yeah, I was told we were going to talk fake trades today, not real trades, so I have to think about this one for a minute. No, I really am excited by this because you see Howie Roseman take these kind of swings on these low-cost receivers. We saw it a couple years ago. They traded for Jahan Dotson, a former first-round pick, but a guy who was going to be making very little salary over the next couple of years to be their third wide receiver. A few years earlier, it was Dorial Green-Beckham. That move obviously did not work out quite as well. But it's this idea of, with wide receivers now making $30+ million a year at the very top. Even your Alec Pierces, your maybe borderline 1-2s making $28 million a year. There's real value in getting a rookie contract player, although Wicks is signing a one-year extension, even at $12.5 million for next year. That's not a ton of money for a player who can be, like you said, a difference maker for a few games a year. You don't have to be an every week star player to make that salary work at the NFL level at wide receiver these days. So I do think it's a logical move. Couple day 3 picks, not going to be the end of the world. Kind of surprised the Packers maybe were willing to move on from Dontavian Wicks at this price tag.
I think the Packers are fine with it. It's a very crowded receiver room. The joke a couple years ago was they didn't have a number 1 receiver. They had a bunch of number 2s. Well, some of those guys have been demoted to number 3, and Wicks is one of those guys. Mina mentioned the entire receiving core had problems with drops. Jordan Love, I think, lost the most yards to drops the last few years. It's been maddening to watch. But Wicks going to Philadelphia, it makes tons of sense. They're a traits-based team when it comes to these sort of flyers.